So 100 subscribers. As I'm recording this video and I'm uploading it, I have 100 subscribers. Depending on when you may be watching this, like it might be less. Someone might have unsubscribed, but this is where I am at right now. And I don't know, I wanted a little video to kind of like celebrate this milestone. First of all, like I have my nose a little stuffy, so I think I have a very nasal voice throughout like this video. And second thing, I would like to thank everybody who reached out, regarding my last video, when my friend passed away. I'm doing okay. So yeah, shout out to Funky Monkey for, reaching out. It's one of those things that like is always going to, be there. So you might, do well one moment, but then the next one, you kind of like remember something and then, it kind of, shakes you to your core. But all things considered, I'm doing pretty well. But yeah, so for this video celebrating 100 subscribers, I was kind of like thinking of maybe kind of like telling the story of this channel, because this channel did not start with the creation of this specific one, because this is the continuation of a different channel, and that channel was a continuation of like a different one, and that one was the one that kind of like ended up setting up like everything the way that it is. So I kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit. I didn't end up googling, what do you kind of like you can talk about on your when you're celebrating 100 subscribers. And yeah, I have a little napkin. I have actually multiple napkins here with me because my nose, I have a runny nose as well. I don't know if I caught the cold or if it is the flu or something. I did not get my flu shot this year, not because I didn't want to, it's just that I know things kept happening, school started, and then at work there's like everything, so yeah, maybe this is the flu. But yeah, so the past 2 days I've been kind of like, my body is aching and all that, but I'm good. But yeah, what I wanted to talk about, this story, it starts back in 2014. I was 16 years old, and I was in high school. I was in the equivalent of my junior year, and it was I don't know, like it was fun times. And at the time, a lot of like my entertainment, it also came from YouTube. I watched TV shows and movies, but I also kept up with a lot of different channels. And at the time, I could kind of like pass that as being kind of like studying, because I watched a lot of like British YouTubers that year, and basically watching them, I was kind of like understanding the accent better. So that was like that whole thing of me kind of like, I know I could pretend that I was kind of studying, but it did work. I think that understanding like certain accents is something that ended up happening because of those videos I was watching. But also in 2014, I ended up getting in contact with what we call BookTube. Which is basically, it's like Book Talk and Bookstagram, where it's the part of like the platform where people are talking about books. And it is pretty, I think that today, like, it is really widespread in a way that it wasn't necessarily back in 2014. I think that the channels that were like in prominence, it was kind of like a handful of them, and I ended up, and then I remember how I got acquainted. It was basically one video by it was one of those, like, you have like a name on your head and you have to kind of like realize like who the other who you are, kind of like keep asking. And it was basically a video like that, but with book characters. I mean, to be fair, like a lot of like the book characters that were being discussed back then, like I didn't really know them, although like right now I do. I'm pretty sure that I would, if I look back, because I still remember the content creators who kind of like uploaded like that video. And so yeah, I don't know, maybe I'm gonna go watch the video later, kind of like a trip down memory lane. But I started with that video, and then I started watching more. And what ended up happening is that I kind of like wanted to kind of like create a channel, and I created it. It was called Let's Read Shakespeare. That was the name of the channel, because I would be reading like not just Shakespeare, but like I think that there was a lack of classical titles. I think that the channels were focused more on like current publications, instead of like the old. So I was like, yeah, let me eat like the current ones, but also the old ones. and that is kind of like what the channel was about. And it started with me just talking about books. So it was me kind of like reviewing books. It was me kind of like, I had some book tags that I would do. I created a bunch of book tags that were with like bands that I was bands and artists that I was kind of like consuming. One, for example, was Agnes Obel, which is an artist that I really like. Her music is pretty great. I really enjoy it, and I really hate this right now. These people. I mean, I think they're just doing business. It's kind of like that. But come on, like right now I'm recording. But yeah, but basically, I kind of like, and I got feedback from this one because it was like a brand new channel, so I only got like a couple of views in each of the the videos. But that was something. So I kind of like, I started this channel, and at first it was just books, but then I started kind of like adding some tidbits here and there for my like just stuff, kind of like, okay, let me just show this away. I started kind of like having, for example, I remember one video that I recorded which was like bad bakery day. That's kind of like bad hair day, but it was happening because I went to multiple bakeries and there was nothing really appetizing there. There's also a video where I'm talking about contrarians, sore spots, and so yeah, it ended up becoming a channel that I would talk about these things. But what happened is that I started at probably like December. Another thing that I think contributed was that I first dyed my hair. I dyed it the stylish color, and it was really nice. I think I wanted to register kind of like record myself with this hair, so I started kind of like recording videos, and it was December, so I was on my summer break from my junior year and my senior year, and I kept recording these videos up to like March, and then I kind of abandoned the channel a little bit, so it was like March 2015, and then on 2016 I went back to the channel because it was like I was waiting for college results, like the applications results, and there were things that were happening. I remember that I was very frustrated with like our internet carrier because the quality was really bad and they were not really making an effort to fix it. So I talked about it. I talked about like me being frustrated, being just like the emotions I was feeling, and then I ended up getting accepted in some colleges, but I didn't. My parents did not have like the resources to kind of like to kind of like send me to college, at least not, internationally. And that was something that, made me sad and frustrated. So I started talking about this. So I started out like actually naming the videos, so it would be something like, I'm frustrated, I'm concerned, and all that. But at a certain point I started, because I would upload the videos, through my computer. So they automatically had a title, which is the way that I title things to this day, which is the IMG and the name of the video. So that's kind of like how that started. It started with like me kind of like no longer having names for the titles, and also like it started with me talking about one thing, and then I changed the topic. So so I titled some of them, but at a certain point that stopped happening. Also, something that kind of like it is worth noticing is that I didn't really have friends at that point in time, and it was kind of like a personal choice. I say that because a lot of it has to do with my trauma when I was 13, the essay situation. It kind of like made me very distrustful of people, so I kind of like shut everybody out, I pushed everybody away, and then I didn't really let anybody in. So I had all these feelings and I didn't really have anybody to talk to. I had tried therapy before, but I was not really willing to be open about my life and the things that were happening, so that didn't really work out as well. So that is like a point for you to kind of like consider, why was I recording these videos. And then as I started recording them, because also like at this point I was still talking about books, because I was a reader. I was a very voracious reader when I was younger. Life happened and I started struggling with reading. To this day I kind of like struggle, but it is there are still like like it is what it is. Like that is something I have to address, and I will at some point, but that's not the point of this video. So I started slowly. So I was basically recording like a video per day, in this channel. This channel lasted for like about 8 years. So I think it was in 2022 that I started, because what happened is that, that old channel, I also uploaded like every single video that I recorded, as I was kind of like, throughout, like the present videos from like that time, but also videos from like the past. So it was kind of like a backup. After like that initial channel, it kind of like was shut down. I stopped doing that because I was also like doing it on Google Photos at the time. Like you didn't have to pay for it, so there's that. But yeah, so I didn't continue doing that for whatever reason. Not whatever reason, pretty much because I was doing that on Google Photos and that was like working for me. But yeah, so I would upload like every video, and sometimes like there's a bunch of them that I would make public, which is something that's like, I don't know, I had like no concern for my safety because I was showing things and places from like where I can like I go to, I live. So there's that. And also like there was, I don't know, I think at a certain point I enlisted or privated all the videos, but there was like a lot of like family videos that I also uploaded. And so basically I was uploading to like no data, like there was nobody was watching. I mean, some people were watching. Also like what changed this dynamic was was YouTube Shorts, because then the videos that I would upload that would be vertical and less than 1 minute long, they would kind of like appear to people. So I had a lot of videos that had like a lot of traction. I had one that had like over 100,000 views. It's not really interesting. It's just like, for example, I had I got into even some fights online because sometimes I register, I record the things I am consuming, like whatever videos and whatever, for example, something I'm drinking. And I remember there was this one video that I was just recording like the can of like this drink that I was drinking, and somebody was like, this is a very low effort. And I was like, dude, I look at the rest of the channel, I'm not trying to get traction here. But that kind of like taught me an interesting lesson that in shorts, like, you can reach out a lot of people, and that is not necessarily a good thing, because it's just like the type of thing that is like bringing strife. Because like if I'm having a good day, like I just move on. But if I'm having kind of like a bad day, then I will kind of like get invested in that conversation, that discussion, and then we discussed. It was kind of like a bit of a fight, but yeah, but like that's not the point. So I started kind of like recording this video. I don't remember. I feel like my second channel, I continue uploading this. I know that in this channel I stopped doing that, and it's kind of weird because it's interesting because I also did that. I had a private Instagram page where I uploaded like every single picture that I took. So I got to a point that I had like over 100,000 pictures, and I decided to just take it all down. It took a while, but I deleted everything. I deleted the page because like even though it's private, it's not completely. There's still eyes there, what I'm trying to say. But yeah, but like, why did my first channel get suspended? So it was kind of like a silly thing. I think the first, because there were 3 strikes, and that's kind of like when it happened. And I think the first strike was kind of like, I believe, like in the beginning of the channel, because I would watch, I would kind of like leave the videos playing, like in the background as I was like doing things, and that was kind of like considered, it was kind of considered, anyway, they were considering that I was trying to manipulate the views, which fair enough. So there's that. I'm pretty sure that is it, because there were 2 other incidences, closer to 2022 when the channel was shut down. And what happened is, because as I said, like I was uploading every video I took, which meant that I sometimes like I was doing that very thoughtlessly, like I was just like clicking, uploading, and I used to take a lot of, I still take a lot of videos, I still take a lot of pictures, take a lot of photos. So that is just part of like I guess my personality. But what happened is that in 2021 I had a surgery, a mastectomy, and basically I have a bunch of like before and after photos, before and after videos. And what happened is that I ended up accidentally uploading one of those videos. It was private, it was not like public, but it's still kind of like the censor's eyes. So I basically ended up kind of like having that suspension. And I believe that the next time that happened was a similar situation, where I once again I had, because after the surgery I went to the doctor every month or every 2 weeks. I think it was every 2 weeks, and then it became once a month. So, and we're taking pictures and stuff. So I think I uploaded a video second time. That one I remember kind of like like as soon as I clicked, I was like, oh my god, what did I do? And I hurried to kind of like, but it was a very short video, and the internet was pretty good that day, so I uploaded, and then I got strike on a strike, and the video and the channel was over. I was pretty sad when that happened because I had poured like 8 years of like my thoughts, my feelings. It was kind of like a really good timeline for you to kind of like get to know me, because also something that started happening is that through those videos I started kind of like establishing goals for myself, goals for things for me to do, but also goals of like how to improve, how can I do better, how can I grow. And I mean, I still have like all those videos, the majority of those videos, the videos from 2015, because like those days I was actually editing some stuff, which is kind of like crazy because I don't edit anymore. But like that video, like those videos, I kind of like edited, so it was a lot of like time and effort. So I don't have like the final product for some of them, but I have like the raw footage, so I didn't really lose everything. But yeah, those videos from 2015, they are kind of like, some of them I lost to the ether. Also because like some of those videos, because at a certain point I remember that by the time my hair was white in 2016, I was already kind of like saving every video. But before that, when my hair was purplish and light pink and blue, and then light blue, I there's some I don't have everything, but yeah, but like at this point I'm like, what, like that's in the past. I still have those videos, they're still ew. Okay, I think I'm getting worse, like regarding this, flu and or cold, whatever it is that is happening. I think my nose today is worse than it was yesterday. But yeah, so moving on to second channel, I started that like as soon as that one was over. I tried to like to get it back, but it didn't work, and it wouldn't work. And I started the second channel, which I had it for like a year and a half to 2 years. So what happened with that one is that I started a channel on the same email that I had started the previous one. So after like a year and a half, 2 years, they kind of like suspended the channel because like it was that email that was suspended, not just the channel. But I will say that I have like another channel which is just like very random content that I edited, and it's called LCSD 97, and I have a lot of videos. No, I have like 5 videos there, and that channel was also created on that email, and it has not really been suspended. So I go check on it, but I can't get into the channel. So I check on it every once in a while to see if like the channel is suspended, but it is not. But yeah, so the channel before this one, it was very much. By that time I already have kind of like a pattern established, so it was pretty much what I have today. This is the format, and I don't know, sometimes people tell me to kind of like start adding titles to my videos, but I don't know if I'm attached to this format of what it is, but also I don't really know what to call like these videos. But that's it. So thank you for everybody who subscribed. Something that happened in these channels that makes me very happy is that I was able to make some friends. Like there is people who end up having conversations with, and it's pretty fun. To kind of like train myself to interact. Because as I said, now I'm open, but because I was kind of like stuck, not really doing anything for so long, I kind of like I lost practice. Also, like I've lost some friends as well, not because it's videos, it's just because there's people who I kind of like got to meet, but then the channel gets suspended, and then I kind of like I lose touch with them. So like that's pretty sad, but I'm just trying to look at the positive, which is that like those people, they existed in my life for the extent that they have existed. And yeah, so it is. So here it is. Almost 12 years, it's going to be 12 years in December of me kind of me kind of like having these channels, and of me kind of like putting myself out there. And something positive that I really like about this is because it is both, I'm both kind of like putting this out there for anyone to see, but also it's kind of like still private. So I kind of like, whenever I'm kind of like saying things, I'm kind of like conscious of what I'm saying, and that kind of like makes me think about what do I want to put out there, what do I want to keep to myself. Because as I said before, in the first channel that I had, like I was super open about a lot of things. I was young, so I mean I'm still young, but I was younger, so like I sometimes it would just be a lot of oversharing. And as I said, like because I thought that I was talking to Dieter, I didn't, yeah, I kind of like, because like what I'm kind of like starting to value at this point in my life is privacy. I think when I was younger I had this notion that nobody could touch me, that I was invincible, and right now I'm more like, yeah, people can touch me, like I'm not invincible, not at least in the way that I used to think that I was. And that kind of like means, looking at after myself, safeguarding, like myself, my words, kind of like also like keeping my peace. That is, also something that has been, kind of like a rising concern of mine. So kind of like not getting involved in everything, not getting involved like in anything as I would do when I was younger. So yeah, so this past 11 years and a half, a lot has happened, and I'm all the better for it. Like I think that even though I don't have, like the old channel anymore, I still have that trajectory. I still have, all this. Yeah, so 100 subscribers. I think this channel is from 2022, but I started uploading in 2024. So, and I think that, I started uploading was like May 2024. So it's been like roughly 2 years and 100 subscribers. Like that is kind of impressive because I never really thought that I would have. I mean, I'm not kind of like here to gain traction, as I said. So I'm just here kind of like interacting with the people who interact with me. I'm kind of like putting myself out there. It's kind of like a journal that I have, and I don't know, it's kind of like, it's interesting what can happen. So anyways, bye, thank you.